Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the fourth annual ASC Connect conference. I'm Stan Magidson, Chair and CEO of the Alberta Securities Commission. Thank you for joining us today as we discuss how Alberta is adapting to new market realities and fostering resilience. Just as it is in all parts of our lives, this ASC Connect conference will be different from those we held in the past. For starters, it's virtual, so people from all over our province and beyond can participate from wherever you feel most comfortable. And this won't be your typical regulatory conference, because we won't be discussing the finer points of securities regulation. Today, we are focused on what is top of mind for all of us in Alberta, our economic recovery plan. Before we move into our program, I will touch on just a few of the highlights from the last year at the Alberta Securities Commission. Global shifts in the energy markets have brought rapid change to Alberta's economy, and the outbreak of COVID-19 added an entirely new set of challenges. There are two certainties that have motivated our planning at the ASC. We must do all that we can to maintain the resilience of one of Canada's most important capital markets. And we must prepare for new market realities in the months and years to come. After extensive consultation earlier in 2020, we established a new 3-year strategy. Our mission is to foster a fair and efficient capital market and to protect investors. And our 3 strategic pillars that guide our priorities to 2023 include delivering intelligent regulation aimed at fostering a thriving capital market, proactive and comprehensive compliance oversight, enforcement, and education, and fostering a culture of engagement. As we embarked on implementing our strategic plan, the COVID-19 pandemic hit. Our first priority was the health and safety of our employees, and so we quickly shifted to enabling our employees to work from home. From there, working swiftly, collaboratively, and efficiently with our fellow securities regulators across Canada, North America, and internationally, in addition to our federal counterparts at the Bank of Canada, OSFI, and Finance Canada, we took action to support the needs of both investors and industry. We had to find the balance between measures meant to alleviate burden and investor protection at a time of extreme market volatility. Working together, we communicated directly with chief compliance officers and registrants even before the pandemic was officially declared. We provided blanket relief for regulatory filings and guidance on annual general meetings. We published regular and timely investor alerts on COVID-19 fraudulent activities and launched wide-reaching investor-focused social media campaigns and advertisements to alert the public. We looked into short selling activity. We extended the comment period of ongoing consultations and halted the publication of new regulatory work until June. We eased transition of our client-focused reforms changes. We began participating in the North American Securities Administrators Association enforcement sweep, targeting COVID-19 scams We increased short-term borrowing limits for mutual funds, including equity funds. We provided temporary relief to companies with delayed annual meetings, and we provided liquidity risk managed guidance. Unfortunately, we are not out of the woods yet. However, the health and safety of our people remains our priority, and I'm heartened by the flexibility and adaptability of our own plan at the ASC and by the decisive collaboration that we have achieved across the securities regulatory community. I believe we are weathering this storm together. But all of you are here today to learn more about what Alberta is doing to recover from our current market realities. And I'm delighted that we have some of Alberta's brightest minds engaging with us in conversation today. They truly are the best people to shed light on our economic recovery plan. We'll kick off with remarks from the Honourable Travis Toews, Minister of Finance. We will then transition to our first panel discussion with three thought leaders who play a critical role in the Premier's Economic Recovery Council. They will share their perspectives on Alberta today and economic and fiscal considerations that will drive our future prosperity. We'll then take a 15-minute break and move into our second and last panel discussion that brings together capital market leaders with those on the ground in the innovation space to discuss real, meaningful innovation, capital formation, catalysts for growth, and the ways in which Alberta can leverage its existing advantages. I will wrap up our time together with a few closing remarks, and we will then send you on your way by noon. Our objective is for you to walk away with a much better understanding of Alberta's plan for economic recovery and efforts underway to foster resiliency and innovation. But quickly, just before we get things rolling, I wanted to mention that we strongly encourage your input and interaction during each panel session. Please do pose your questions through the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. With that said, let's get started. I'm very pleased to introduce our opening speaker, the Honourable Travis Toews, President of Treasury Board and Minister of Finance.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be with you virtually today. I really appreciate the opportunity to present briefly this morning. I'd like to talk to you about Alberta's economic and fiscal situation, share some highlights about Alberta's economic recovery plan, and lastly, talk about what's ahead for the province and for Albertans. As we all know, it's been an extraordinary year so far, one in which Albertans have had to face perhaps the most challenging time in certainly modern history. In early 2020, Alberta was hit especially hard by what I would characterize as a triple black swan event. We've experienced the largest economic contraction in the global economy, likely since the Great Depression. We have lived through the largest collapse in energy prices in modern history. And of course, we were and continue to deal with a pandemic within our borders. This all in addition to the economic challenges that our province was already facing, challenges that I believe were beginning to turn around in early 2020 prior to the COVID energy crash. In fact, in January and February, we started to see positive signs in the Alberta economy. Growth was returning to Alberta's agriculture sector, and we've had that one good piece of good news certainly in 2020 is we've had what many grain companies believe could be a record harvest in the province of Alberta, and with relatively strong prices. The livestock sector as well, while it's been a little bit bumpy, has largely had a pretty good year. And so agriculture is a bright spot in the province's economy. That was beginning to show up in early 2020, and I can certainly say now that that has developed over the course of the year. But back in January and February, manufacturing exports were expected to rise. The real estate market was improving. We were really beginning to see investment return to our province. Oil and gas drilling rig activity was up 14% January, February, year over year. Oil production was up 6% year over year. Exports were up a full 19%. And we were seeing increased retail sales, vehicle sales, and improved housing activity as well. So again, we really believe 2020 would be a turnaround year for the Alberta economy. And in fact, early indications supported that thesis. COVID-19, of course, changed all that in a matter of weeks. Facing the most serious health crisis in a generation, our government put a series of public health measures in place. And I'll say this, reluctantly put a series of public health measures in place. We recognized early on as we were making these decisions that every measure that we put in place that would limit economic activity or close a part of the economy had profound effects on entrepreneurs, on Albertans who in many cases had given their heart and soul to a business venture. That now was going to be jeopardized with these public health measures. Schools and of course non-essential businesses temporarily closed to curb the spread of the virus. Albertans of course were asked to follow the recommendations of the Chief Medical Officer of Health. And of course we all got into the habit of washing hands, physically distancing, staying at home if we're sick, and getting tested for the virus if we showed symptoms. Now, Albertans did an incredible job, and that was a large part of why our province fared better than many other jurisdictions over the last number of months. And while we've all worked together to protect the health of Albertans, our government strived to keep as much of the economy open as possible. We worked hard to avoid the wide-scale shutdowns and lockdowns imposed by other governments around the world. At the height of the pandemic, 85% of Alberta businesses, representing 96% of our economy by GDP, continued to function and operate. Now, the pandemic has fundamentally changed the global economy, and Alberta, of course, has not been immune. Due mainly to the impacts of the pandemic, the related oil price crash, and the global economic contraction, we've seen nearly a quarter of government revenues evaporate. We're now projecting a deficit of over $24 billion in the current fiscal year that we're in, the year ended March 31st, 2021. That's almost $17 billion higher than estimated in our budget 2020. We're now facing a debt burden of just under $100 billion by the end of this fiscal year, or at least that's our projection at this point. And I think we all agree it's vital that we take action to get Alberta's economy back on track. To deal with this great fiscal challenge, we will require economic recovery and growth. In late June, well ahead of any other province, Alberta released its economic recovery plan. Alberta's recovery plan is a bold, ambitious, long-term strategy to build, diversify, and create tens of thousands of jobs now at a time when Albertans desperately need an opportunity. It's a plan for today that provides hope for the future. This plan was developed with input from Alberta's Economic Recovery Council. The council is chaired by one of Canada's most highly regarded economists, Dr. Jack Mintz. Also on the council is the founder of ARC Financial Corporation, Mac Van Willigen, and ATCO Chair and CEO, Nancy Southern, all of whom I believe will be speaking at the conference later on in the agenda. We're also fortunate to have on the council the Right Honourable Stephen Harper, who successfully led Canada through the global financial crisis. This recovery strategy builds on Alberta's enormous strengths. Alberta has the youngest and best educated population in the country. We have some of the most valuable natural resources on the face of the earth, many of which we've not yet begun to develop. Alberta has the lowest taxes in Canada. And we have many historic industries like agriculture, forestry, and of course energy, a thriving innovation sector, a world-class tourism experience, and dynamic creative industries, and that's just to name a few. We are a diversified economy, much more diversified today than we were in decades past. And most importantly, Albertans have an entrepreneurial culture. Alberta's recovery plan builds on these and other strengths with timely, targeted investments and bold policy reforms focused on immediate job creation. But maybe more importantly, our plan will make Alberta more competitive in the long term. It will accelerate economic diversification in industries of the future, ensure a strong future for Alberta's innovative energy industry, and demonstrate to investors around the world that Alberta is the destination of choice for capital. One of the pillars of the recovery plan is infrastructure investment. More than $10 billion in infrastructure spending will create tens of thousands of jobs and positions the province for a generation of growth. These include strategic infrastructure projects that will improve our competitiveness and productivity, which will lead to increased private sector investment. These same projects will move people from unemployment to good jobs right now, again at a time when thousands of Albertans need an opportunity. This investment will spur the creation of, we estimate, 50,000 jobs and other jobs through subcontractors and suppliers, small businesses, hotels, and restaurants in every corner of the province. Alberta's recovery plan ensures our business owners and investors know our province is a place where businesses thrive, grow, and can succeed. We've accelerated the job creation tax cut to give Alberta by far and away the most attractive tax environment for new business investment in Canada and among the lowest rates in all of North America. On July 1st, we moved the general business tax rate from 10% to 8%. With Canada's most competitive tax environment, we're putting Alberta on a path for a generation of growth. We've also announced the Innovation Employment Grant, which we plan to launch in January of 2021. This is an exciting new incentive to create high-paying jobs by making Alberta the most attractive place in Canada to invest in the critical technology and innovation sector, future industries for the nation. Essentially, it's a refundable tax credit targeted at small and medium-sized companies to encourage technology and investment in Alberta. It rewards businesses that make investments in tech and innovation by providing a grant of up to 20% of R&D spending. Together with Alberta's job creation tax cut or preferred corporate tax rate, this will make Alberta the best place in Canada to start a tech firm. To provide immediate support to Alberta's technology sector, we're also investing an additional $175 million into the Alberta Enterprise Corporation. This investment will support Alberta's tech entrepreneurs with access to capital, operational expertise, and industry networks they need to grow their businesses. And it will also create up to 4,000 jobs right now in Alberta. We've also established Invest Alberta, a new provincial agency that will lead an aggressive worldwide campaign to attract job creating investment. The agency will retool and expand our network of international offices while providing concierge service to prospective investors and tell institutional investors the truth about Alberta's environmentally responsible energy sector. These and many other measures will complement dozens of pro-growth policies we're already implementing as part of the province's blueprint for jobs. That includes the Red Tape Reduction Initiative, which is making great progress towards our goal of reducing the number of regulatory requirements imposed by government by 1/3 and speeding up approval so we become the freest and fastest moving economy in North America. It also includes the Skills for Jobs plan, which aims to promote apprenticeships and exponential learning and make sure Albertans are ready to seize the jobs of the future. Our strategy includes significant actions to support growth in our foundational sectors like energy and agriculture, as well as in new and promising sectors. For example, we're adding value to our natural resources by accelerating the future of the natural gas industry. We've also introduced a retooled Alberta Petrochemicals Incentive Program, which will bring potentially tens of billions of dollars of investment to petrochemical projects throughout Alberta. The petrochemical manufacturing sector is a sector that we believe has a great future in the province. It's a sector that we believe we already have some key fundamental competitive advantages, and it's sectors like those that we want to build on. Alberta has a number of centers that have distinguished themselves as potential and existing petrochemical manufacturing centers. These include the Alberta's Industrial Heartland, the Grand Prairie region, Joffre and Medicine Hat. The new incentive program will build on the already strong growth potential, again, of these centers and attract new investment by cutting red tape and increasing certainty and flexibility for investors. We're also implementing sector-specific strategies to drive diversification, including in agriculture and forestry, tourism, technology and innovation, and aviation, and in finance and fintech. The financial services sector has a great opportunity for growth in Alberta. Nearly 43,000 people were employed in the financial services sector in Alberta in 2019, but that only represents 8.3% of total payroll employment in the financial services sector across Canada. And with Alberta having 11.6% of Canada's population and contributing 15% of the nation's GDP, there remains considerable growth opportunity for the financial services sector in the province of Alberta. And Alberta has an excellent value proposition compared to other jurisdictions. Now, we have the lowest corporate income tax rate in Canada by far. We don't have a payroll tax. We have world-class commercial space at bargain prices. And we have a very low cost of living in the province. That's something, that's a narrative that has really changed over the last decade. And Calgary has been named one of the top 5 livable cities in the world. And we have excellent cities in this province, more than just Calgary, certainly Edmonton. We can't leave Edmonton out. But we can also look at cities such as Red Deer and Lethbridge, Medicine Hat, even Grand Prairie. We have some incredibly livable cities, and we have an incredibly livable province in Alberta. Now, the benefits are not only for the financial services companies, but they're really for their employees and their families to enjoy. Alberta is a tremendous place to live, and that's whether you're living in Calgary or Edmonton, or whether you're up in the Grand Prairie region or down in the southeast by Medicine Hat. To sum it up, Alberta's recovery plan is based on common sense, not ideology. It positions the province for growth and investment, creating good jobs now and laying the groundwork for prosperity for future generations. We do have a long road ahead of us, but Albertans have proven time and time again that we are an entrepreneurial and resilient people. I'm optimistic for the future of our province and expectant of the opportunities that will result from all of us coming together to face this challenge and set a new course for Alberta's future. Thank you and enjoy the conference.
Thank you, Minister Toews. We appreciate you taking the time to address us and share the province's economic recovery plan.